Reshma, hi, welcome to the show.
So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Where are you today?
I'm at home in St. Louis, Missouri. That's where Summersalt is headquartered. I used to live in Mumbai in India and then New York City and now call St. Louis home. So here's where I am.
That's so cool. What took you to St. Louis?
Well, I was living in a fourth floor walk up in Brooklyn with two women I had met on Craigslist.
Classic New York.
Very glamorous New York City life. And I got engaged and my husband said, why don't you try out St. Louis? And I was like, okay, what do I have to lose? And so ended up here and haven't looked back since, and so grateful to found this amazing business here.
That's so cool. Good old St. Louis. I don't think I've ever had someone on the show from St. Louis before. This is a first for me.
Well, that's exciting. Well, it's a wonderful city. It's, 3 million people. So we have everything we need, easy to get to LA and New York. As a founder, sometimes you have to fly places for crazy amounts of time, but you can do LA in a day from St. Louis and you can do New York in a day, which I've done. Early morning flight, late flight home. It works to be in the middle.
That's awesome. Can you give us a bit of an introduction to who you are and the elevator pitch for your brand and what it's all about for anyone who might not know yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Reshma Chattaram Chamberlin. I'm one of the co-founders of Summersalt. I founded this business with my amazing co-founder, Lori. She had been designing and manufacturing swimwear and other apparel in a really interesting tech-enabled way for a long time. So she was very early into the tech meets fashion space. We are acquaintances and didn't know each other very well, to be honest, not personal friends. But we realized quickly that there was a unique opportunity and launched Summersalt together. And I'm so grateful. We enjoy working together every single day. And Summersalt is a direct-to-consumer apparel and lifestyle brand. We started in swimwear and now have every aspect of her wardrobe covered. So including these fun summer dresses that are the easiest to wear. So everything in between.
So you said that you didn't know each other before. You hadn't kind of grown up with Lori, didn't know her. How did you actually meet and kind of get to that point of building a business together?
Well, it's such a funny and wonderful story. So about now, oh my gosh, I think it was 2013. So getting on 9 years ago, I guess, was the first time Lori and I met. We essentially met at a networking event where Lori was instantly helpful to me. I had an app at the time. And she said, you know what, let me introduce you to this one. Let me introduce you to that one. It was literally the first time I had ever met her. But two female entrepreneurs in the Midwest helping each other out. So over the course of time, we just kept in touch. We both respected each other greatly and what we had built. But again, we were not personal friends and we had never worked together. We just really had respected each other from afar and then had become, I would say, business acquaintances. Lori and I met for lunch in 2016 at Chipotle, very fancy.
I love Chipotle.
I know, you can't go wrong with Chipotle. But we met to kind of discuss what was happening in the retail space and kind of the acceleration of disruption. And we've continued to see that acceleration now due to the pandemic. And there's so much happening in the retail space. And so we sat down to lunch over burrito bowls and talked about kind of what was happening. Again, not intending for that lunch to be anything life-changing or life-defining. We kind of shared our philosophy of the retail space. We both left that lunch kind of like, okay, great. That was a great, entrepreneurial catch up. Lori left that lunch and kind of started percolating on what could be next and wrote the initial business plan for what is now Summersalt. Ironically, I had an agency at the time. So she came back and tried to hire my agency to help her launch what is now Summersalt. But I was in a transition, so actually declined because I was just kind of thinking about shutting down my agency. So I didn't think it was responsible to kind of take on a new client when you're in a transition. But serendipitously, Lori and I bumped into each other in New York at an event I actually was not invited to. I was meeting a friend who happened to be late, so it was very serendipitous. And I was very grateful to see a familiar face in Lori. And we often say Lori cornered me, which is absolutely true. She saw me, she was like, here's the deck, here's the line sheet, let's talk about it. And once she kind of walked me through the incredible strategy that is now Summersalt, I couldn't help but ask her what she thought of a co-founder. And as they say, the rest is history.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. And was it like from her side just an immediately like, yes, let's do it together? Because, I guess she'd already vetted you. She wanted to hire you originally.
Yeah, we both kind of knew that, we were two sides of the same coin, is what we often say. We really have complementary skill sets, but really are incredibly strategically aligned. And that's very hard to find. And it was just truly a match that, we both did not want to walk away from. So she was like, yes, let's start talking about it. And I think we both left the hotel in New York. It was at the Gramercy Park Hotel Rose Bar. We both left thinking, did we just do that? You have those moments where you're like, did you actually commit to that? Again, amazingly, we're actually based in St. Louis. The fact that we bumped into each other in New York is kind of serendipitous to be there.
So bizarre.
We just started working on the business, and there you go.
That is so cool. I just want to dig in one step further to the business plan and what she showed you that night at the event, and specifically around the strategy. Like, what got you excited? What was in the business plan that made you be like, here's something different that I actually really see myself working on?
Well, for one, I wanted to eat, breathe, and sleep our brand. And it's something that, I wanted to be kind of inspired by the product and what we were building. And if you think about the swimwear space, it hadn't been disrupted in decades. It had been marketed in an over-sexualized way for eternity, right? It was a men's view of what women should be and feel. And for us, it was really about creating product that was truly designer quality without the designer price point, all made out of recycled materials. That was a very big personal checkbox for me. We're incredibly thoughtful about what we do. We are not perfect by any means, but we're incredibly thoughtful. And then the third thing was we were able to deliver this in a joyful package in an industry that's essentially devoid of that. And of course, we started with swimwear and now have expanded to every corner of our wardrobe. But what initially was the business plan was to start with swimwear. And that got me incredibly excited because essentially we had an unfair advantage. Lori had been designing and manufacturing swimwear for a decade. And we were able to create something optional in a place where there was a big vacuum. So when you think about market opportunity, vacuum, plus your own skill set to be able to execute, we checked all those three boxes. So it was a no-brainer.
The trifecta.
Exactly right.
Okay, so you go back to St. Louis, you're really excited, you decide that you're going to build this business together. Lori obviously has so much experience in the swim space. What are those initial steps to getting you kind of, ready to launch? And what's that time period like?
A crazy timeline because we did it in a crazy amount of time. So just to level set on timeline, we bumped into each other in New York in January of 2017. We opened up a bank account in April and we launched May 23rd.
Oh my God.
So that gives you any idea of timeline. Not a normal timeline, but Lori and I often say that both of our careers led to this exact moment. Yes, we were starting something new, but we had so much pent up experience, skill set, vendors, everything ready to go. A little bit different than a startup that has to start from zero and build it all up. So again, not the most sane timeline, but effective nonetheless. And that's what we did. And honestly, it takes a lot to get started. It required both of us to wrap up our own businesses because we both had two businesses. We raised a small round of capital in that timeline. We manufactured the collection. We enabled the brand. We designed the brand. We did the website. It was complete and absolute kind of all hands on deck, kind of 24/7. But it's so worth it when you look back and literally just celebrated our 5-year anniversary, and you look back and the milestones we've achieved. It's all because we knew we needed to put that work in early on.
That is so cool. Gosh, what a ride. Oh my goodness. You mentioned that you raised a small round of capital, and I want to sort of stay on the capital piece for a moment because I love to dig into the money side of things. I read that you raised around $600,000 initially, and since then you've gone on to raise 2 further rounds totaling around $26 million, which is amazing, by the way. Congrats. That's a huge, huge feat. How were you thinking about capital, and why did you decide to go down that kind of VC route from the get-go?
Well, I think there's different ways to build a business, and I don't think there's a right or wrong way to build a business. For us, we just wanted to create the biggest version of Summersalt it could be, and we knew we needed capital to be able to do that. We do believe that, we are truly poised to be kind of a lifestyle and generation defining brand, and we needed the money to do it. So for us, it was really about how big we wanted the pie to be, as opposed to how big we wanted our own slices to be, if that makes sense. And so for us, it was really about the right partners, the right scale, and building something that we can look back and people will still be shopping in 20, 30, 40, 50 years. That's our goal.
Yeah, amazing. And with that experience of obviously going through 3 rounds of fundraising, what have been the kind of key experiences or key learnings that you've taken from that you now have in your toolkit and you can share to other entrepreneurs perhaps thinking about going down that pathway?
But I always remind everyone that only 2% of venture funding goes to women. I think it was up to nearly 3% in 2019, and then we have 2020 hit with COVID, and then I think it's closer to 2% again. We all need to remove our rose-colored glasses, because when you think about, there's less women in those decision-making seats. There's less women in those, larger funds who are able to kind of champion something that they understand. Pitching swimsuits to men who've never had an experience trying on swimwear is not easy. From the Midwest, when we said that literally, the closest beach we have is the Mississippi River. You know what I mean? Like, there's no beach there. It's always a challenge, but we've had amazing, amazing men support our journey and women support our journey. So one of the things that we really focused on was sharing the big business picture, as opposed to getting bogged down in the fact that this business was dedicated to women, or this business could be dedicated to men, or whatever it might be. We just focused on the economics and how sound they were, how big the business could be, the opportunity, our scale. And really, even if you took out swimwear from the equation and made it about t-shirts or soap or shampoo, it would make complete sense because of how sound that was. So we really started painting the big picture. There's also research that says that women get preventative questions about 60% of the time. I think I want to double check on that statistic. And what that means is that if someone is going to ask you a question, women get preventative questions more often. So instead of saying, "Oh, it's amazing, the sky is so vast and blue," it'll be, "Oh my God, but the sky is so vast and blue. How are you going to deal with that?" Right? Two very different tones. And so what we just started focusing on is focusing on the bigger picture every time. So even when we got a preventative question, we answered with a growth answer. And one thing to clarify, it's not only men asking those preventative questions, it's women asking women those preventative questions as well. So that's just something to note. Women will get preventative questions more than men do. So instead of getting defensive, which we were in the early days, you get so annoyed and so upset when it's a negative outview, but we really focused on building a growth-focused approach to our answers. And again, focusing on the potential of the business. We have an incredible business. It is a rocket ship. So we just wanted people to either get on or get out of our way is essentially what it was.
Wow, that's amazing. Isn't it interesting how even though there's so much kind of talk in the media about how we need to change these statistics and, we've heard these statistics a million times over, it feels like it isn't really shifting and the same issues keep arising?
I would say absolutely, but the biggest thing is the more of us that can squeeze through and create something big, then there's more of us to create impact on the other end. And so I think persistence is key, even if you hit that brick wall over and over again, which is honestly quite hard, right? You don't want to hit that brick wall again and again, but that persistence is key. And you can often end up with, something absolutely incredible and hopefully influence the next generation of entrepreneurs and make their journey maybe, a few percentage points easier than yours. And it doesn't feel like change will be drastic, but I know we're making an impact.
Yes, you are one of those people changing the stats. That's so cool. I want to kind of go back a little bit, back towards the launch and those that early, 2017 getting started, that first 12 months. How did the launch go and what were you doing to kind of get your first 1,000 customers?
Amazing question. Well, one, we needed to make sure our technology was sound. So I think something that people might take for granted is, okay, we can get a website up quick and neat. Yes, you can. You can get it up quickly, but is the user experience sound? Is it easy for someone to check out? Is shipping easy? We wanted to make sure all the nuts and bolts were in place so that there was no kind of friction to shop. We also wanted to make sure we told our story. We had size guides, all of the things that we know were hurdles for women to make a purchase when it came to store. When it comes to kind of launch, one of the things that we focused on was making sure press knew we were here and we were ready to go and change the conversation. And so we had a beautiful launch collection, and essentially every press outlet you can think of wrote about it. And what is even more amazing is the consumer came and shopped in droves, and our initial success was incredibly organic. And then, of course, we continued to support our success and initial momentum with strong and thoughtful marketing. But really, those things that we needed to have in place were a launch strategy, technology, press, and making sure that we could execute on the promise, and then allowed that to be the fuel for kind of the next phase of marketing and what we wanted to do with the business.
That's so cool. And what was the next phase and kind of next part of building that business? Or even if you have to think about the bullet points of what got you from, say, end of 2017 to 2022, there's a lot to cover there, but what are those kind of milestones that were leaping you forward or pivotal moments?
Well, I would say just the foundation of what we say is meeting her where she is. And that, I think, is at the foundation of everything we do. So what that means is we meet her where she is emotionally. What does she need from us? We meet her where she is digitally or physically. Where is she shopping? Is she spending time on Instagram? Is she spending time on TikTok? Where is she? And where is she, quote unquote, physically, which I mean is like, is she taking us to Morocco, or is she taking us to the lake in her hometown? And that's really important because through the pandemic, we were able to kind of speak to the consumer in a way that we'd want to be spoken to, right? We said, you know what, it kind of sucks. And we're going to have these, we always said we were about big or small adventures. But guess what? The summer of 2020 is going to be about the summer of simpler things. And we're going to think about enjoying watermelon in our backyard, the slip and slide, the lake, the pool. We may not be doing those big adventures we had planned, but it's going to be a sweet and beautiful summer. And we gave her permission to shop in that way and shared product that worked in that environment. And so for us, both from a product and marketing perspective, it's always about meeting our consumer where she is. And we are a reflection of that customer. So it's really actually amazing to be building a business where you are also one of your own customers. And we can say, okay, you know what? In February, she's thinking about X, as opposed to traditional retailers who are thinking about, large collection drops 4 times a year. We're more thinking about where our consumer is at a particular given point in time and what she needs from us. That allows us to be really thoughtful, give her the best quality product at the best possible price with always some sustainable aspect to our product.
Yeah, I love that. And so true over the pandemic kind of timing. The brands that were able to meet you in that pandemic life were really the brands that you were still able to connect with and purchase from and kind of feel a bit closer to, because they are able, instead of just either, going in a different direction or closing down because they weren't able to provide you the right messaging. There were a lot of brands who did that quite well, kind of joining you at home or joining you in the park and things like that.
Exactly.
Something I saw that you're quite good at is collaborations. You've done a few really big ones that I want to kind of touch on, specifically Rifle Paper Co. and the collab with Netflix's The Home Edit Show. I read you did something crazy, like $1 million in revenue after 24 hours. So I just want to kind of talk about your approach to collaborations and breaking it down, like really tactically, how these come about.
Yeah, absolutely. Rifle Paper is an amazing partner of us, as was the Home Edit. The Rifle, we have another drop coming soon, so everyone should sign up for our email list because those collaborations sell out instantly. The Home Edit team is absolutely amazing. We had the best time partnering with them. We really worked on content as well as product, which was really, really a fun place to be. For us, it's all about identifying trends and identifying brands that we have something in common with in the way in which we approach women and life and joyfulness, but we both have a unique perspective to bring to product. So when it comes to the Home Edit, we have this most amazing rainbow aesthetic, right? They have this really strong core group of followers, but they don't mix when we're in loungewear. So an amazing way to group together was to bring that rainbow aesthetic to product that we love and adore and create something unique. So the same with Rifle. They have the most brilliant prints. You know, Anna is the most incredible artist. These prints come to life in the most beautiful way. And so for us, it's truly about creating something unique for their customer and for our customer. And we're very, very thoughtful and tactical about what we do here. You know, it's not about a flash in the pan. It's about strong, thoughtful relationships, making sure all our marketing is aligned, making sure we're, you know, focused on what kind of inventory we want to sell, what that looks like, who we're targeting. We're very business strategic when it comes to those collaborations. And we like to do business with great brands. And so that's another piece of the puzzle. So that's what we do. More often than not, it's us sending an email or them sending us an email or us DMing them or them DMing us. I think the rules of how business are done is completely different now. It doesn't have to be incredibly formal, but it can be incredibly efficient. So I do believe that Home Edit, we slipped into their DMs. And I think with Rifle, I think I had sent them an email maybe 3 years before we actually decided to partner together. And someone replied to me essentially 3 years later. So
that's amazing.
And I think a lesson is, you know, you continuously want to put yourself out there and continuously claim what you want. Sometimes it happens in the moment you want it, but sometimes it happens 3 years later, and that timing was way better 3 years later than it was during that initial outreach. So again, each collaboration kind of happens a little bit differently, and each has their own specific goals. But our goal is always to delight and inspire our customers. So if we can create something that we know she'll love, then we're in it to win it together.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh, I can't believe the Home Edit started in the DMs. I always just think like, you know, would people even reply? Like, that's so crazy. That's amazing. Holy moly.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, as a young entrepreneur or someone starting out, don't be afraid to use unconventional ways to get in front of who you want to get in front of, right? Like the rules of engagement are completely different than what they once were. And lean into the society we're in, right? Use the tools we have at hand as opposed to using antiquated tools to get a new result. So I'm all for, you know, make a cool TikTok about someone you want to partner with. Like, do what it takes to get in front of what you want.
Yes, be different, be unique. I love that. That's great advice. We've talked about so many of the highlights of your business journey so far and these things that have gone really well for you. But I'd love to know what kind of challenges that you face in the business. Obviously, entrepreneurship isn't all roses. It's difficult. There's lots of ups and downs. And often we can focus on the highlights more than kind of the bad stuff. What are some of the challenges that you've faced in the journey?
Well, I actually think it's the opposite. I think when you're in it, it's easier to focus on the bad stuff as opposed to the highlights. So more often than not, you're dealing with the day-to-day and like something amazing happens and you're like, great, okay, awesome, moving on, right? I have to deal with this problem. And I think that's a little bit different from an entrepreneurial perspective. The good stuff just gets swept under the rug because you're just needing to move to whichever fire you're trying to put out next is essentially what it is. I would say when you think about kind of the macro environment and kind of what's been happening, most of our life was in COVID. That was a big challenge, right? When you think about supply chain, when you think about consumer and how they're thinking about product, we've had phenomenal growth over the time, which we're so grateful for, but it's not without incredible challenges, focus, problem solving at every twist and turn to make sure we deliver on our consumer promise. So one of the things Lori and I often talk about is kind of how did we win today? Because the day can sometimes feel like, oh my gosh, I dealt with this fire and that stopped working and the checkout button wasn't working. So we lost an hour of sales. It happens, right? It just happens. It's part of the process. So we really try to, you know, ground ourselves in what was the win we had today, whether that was an awesome collaborator responding, whether that was an amazing team member saying, hey, they're so grateful to be on our team, or a new product just doing exceptionally well, or something as simple and as small as, hey, I got to eat a really peaceful lunch today and no one scheduled me in my D&D, and that was like a huge win. So we really focus on the wins every single day. But honestly, the entrepreneurial journey is not for the faint of heart. I think it is incredibly, incredibly challenging. I've been an entrepreneur most of my career, and over 10 years. And it is incredibly challenging every day. So I don't want to put rose-colored glasses on the experience, but the rewards are outsized if you are persistent. And so for us, I know that we just rather do the hard work and hopefully reap big rewards in whatever way they come, as opposed to kind of not taking the risk. I truly believe that no risk, no reward. And rewards present themselves in multiple ways. Now we have an amazing team. I get to work with incredible people every day. I enjoy interacting with them every day. Most people can't say they get energized every morning to get to work. And so that's an amazing reward and privilege of the experience too.
Absolutely. Gosh, how great. What does the future hold for you? Any cool collaborations that you want to shout about?
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. You mentioned Rifle, so Rifle is coming up soon. We also have an amazing collaboration dropping next week. I'm afraid it's going to sell out like the day it launches because of we've done some early like lead generation to see how people feel about it, and we already have way more signups than we have products. So I know that's going to go incredibly fast. For any moms listening, we have an amazing Mommy and Me collaboration coming with our amazing partner, Sarah Foster. So there's just a lot happening this summer. And so I think we're all still waiting for summer to turn its heat up completely. So lots more time to shop and lots more time to get these collabs and amazing products.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. What do you think is your best piece of advice for entrepreneurs in the fashion and apparel space? Is there anything you wish someone told you when you were starting out?
Honestly, my best piece of advice is like a life piece of advice, which is the grass is green where you water it. So I've become incredibly brutal about saying no to anything else. And I think that sometimes it's really hard for us to do that. Like, can you be on this board? Can you meet about coffee about this? Can you do that? When I'm focused, sometimes people might be like, oh, she never wants to do anything. But you know what? I'm focused on two things. I'm focused on Summersalt, and then I'm focused on my family. And that's kind of where my bandwidth is. And I don't apologize for it. And that's where I'm spending my time watering the garden and making sure it blooms. And, there'll be plenty of time to help with other things at a future date. Of course, we try to help entrepreneurs along the journey, make recommendations, do whatever we can. But my focus and my priority is Summersalt. And don't apologize for that priority. And some people will understand it, others won't. And that's okay. But the grass is green where you water it. So focus.
I'm going to put that on a sticky note and put it on my wall. That's my new mantra for the week. I love that. That's so great. Thank you so much. Great advice. Laser focus. We all need it.
Not easy.
At the end of every episode, I ask a series of 6 quick questions, some of which we might have covered, some of which we might not have, but I ask them all the same. Question number 1 is, what's your why? Why are you doing what you're doing every day?
Well, the why is because we can create a future of our dreams, right? Like when you think about things that you want and you want to create and you want to give your family and you want to contribute to the world, we're really truly changing women's lives one swimsuit and one garment at a time. The amazing emails we get is incredibly rewarding. And when you can do that while building an incredibly large business, that's just the fun stuff. So we do it for our customer and then, of course, for our families.
Question number 2 is, what has been your favorite marketing moment so far?
Oh, we launched our Everybody's a Summersalt body campaign, and we launch that every summer. And that is definitely the amount of emails we get from customers and their kids and people who have never seen themselves in marketing are seeing themselves reflected. Again, There's so much more inclusion that we can do, but we do an amazing job. And every time we launch that campaign, it just makes us so happy.
Fills your cup. Sounds so cool. Must be fun to work on it as well.
It is.
Question number 3 is, what's your go-to business resource if you had to kind of go for a podcast, a book, or a newsletter?
I'm going to be very honest. I've literally not had time to spend time in books, podcasts, or anything. I do find a lot of great inspiration on Instagram and TikTok that might not be like the straight line answer someone wants to hear. But it's really important for me to keep up with my industry, what's happening in the social space. And so I do spend quite a bit of time on social media. And then, of course, I think we have amazing people around us who, when I need a dose of inspiration, my co-founder is an amazing source of inspiration for me. And I bother her all the time. So she's my book and podcast all in one.
Shout out to Lori. I love that. Question number 4 is, how do you win the day when it comes to your AM and PM rituals that keep you feeling happy and successful and motivated?
Of course, working from home has changed the dynamic for everyone. And so I actually quite enjoy it. We go to the office. Our teams go 1 day a week. Lori and I go 2 days a week, and we try to overlap 1 day in the office. And it's working really loud. It's a really fun schedule because we get to see everyone, but everyone gets downtime and continues to have kind of some of the flexibility we've all gained from working at home. But my AM and PM rituals, AM is making sure I spend time with my dogs and my husband, eat a nice breakfast. They're just definitely, the light of our lives, these crazy dogs that we have, and you haven't heard them bark once. So thank you to them for that.
Shout out to the dogs.
I know, definitely. Mara and Cody are their names. And then PM, it's all about kind of unwinding. I do like to kind of step away from my computer, have dinner with my family, but then I do like to spend time in my inbox late at night. And some people, don't like to use their phones before they go to bed. I'm not one of those. I use my phone, it's fine, and I sleep just fine. So I like to spend some time making sure I'm prepared for the next day. And that means tackling emails and other things. The schedule tool in Gmail is your best friend. So again, I'm not bombarding everyone's inbox at 11 p.m. I'm able to kind of have that peace and quiet to get through things that are critical to me.
Gosh, I'm on this journey of like trying to not use my phone at nighttime and in the mornings, but also using my phone at nighttime and in the morning. And I have this constant battle of anxiety because I'm like, I want to be on it, but then I don't want to be on it. It's a tough one. I've heard both sides of the coin.
And I think society makes you think that you have to be one way to like achieve like work-life balance and all of this. I honestly, I'm not. There's no such thing as work-life balance if you're an entrepreneur. And maybe that's, not a popular thing to say, but it is about finding an equilibrium that makes sense for you as opposed to balance. There's no such thing as balance. Our lives are incredibly overflowing in every aspect, but that's the most joyous part of it all. Like there's just so much, and it's just a matter of prioritizing things. Someone once told me that you have to figure out when you're juggling which balls are plastic and which balls are glass, and they interchange. So in a particular given week, there might be a family thing that is the glass ball, and you have to prioritize that. And that's okay. And other times, family is the plastic ball, and it can drop and you can pick it right up, right? And it might not be just general buckets, it might be specific things. But I think it's a myth to believe that we can have this clear divide. I think the joy comes in being able to integrate it in a way that works for you, and it works differently for everyone. So if you want to use your phone before you go to bed, use your phone before you go to bed.
You are full of good analogies today. I really like that one. That's another good one. Question number 5 is, what's the worst money you've ever spent in the business and how much was it?
Oh my gosh, I don't think there's ever a worst money because everything comes with good learnings and experience, and we believe in thoughtful and tactical tests. So I would never lump anything into worst, but could have tests not worked the way we wanted to? Absolutely. But the goal was to test and learn. So you want to do it in a calculated, thoughtful, effective way where you understand what kind of that return on investment potential could be, but you could also understand it couldn't work either. And so I think when you think about kind of outlaying cash in any aspect of your business or spending, think about kind of how you can give it the tools to succeed. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and you won't know till you try. So understanding what your parameters are to make those informed trials and thoughtful executions is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. That's a great way to think about that. Good one. A/B testing in general before you dive right in. And question number 6, last question. What's just a crazy story that you can share from your journey in building this business, good, bad, or otherwise?
I just think bumping into Lori, I mentioned our founding story, and it's just absolutely kind of chaotic to think that we would both be in New York at the same night when we live in St. Louis. If anyone knows me, the idea of going to an event is absolute total torture. Like, I do not want to do those things. And I was at an event that I wasn't invited to, and someone was late. So I think the craziest, kind of turn of events is city we don't live in, event I was not invited to, person was late. If that person had been there, Lori and I wouldn't have had the time we needed alone to talk through it. Lori could have been late too. There's so many things that happen to make that moment real. So I would say that's one of the craziest kind of weird serendipitous things. And here we are 5 years later.
That is just amazing. Life is so weird sometimes. So weird. That's cool.
It absolutely is. It just, sometimes you have to get yourself out of your pajamas and go to that event you don't want to. There's maybe some potential there.
Yeah. Say yes when you really want to say no.
Can go both ways.
Yeah. Reshma, this was so cool. Thank you so much for coming on the Female Startup Club podcast and sharing your journey so far with Summersalt. I'm so excited to see what's next.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and hope everyone has a wonderful, joyful summer.